I was 54 years old, retired from 31 years in the oil patch, standing barefoot on my own front porch in Gregg County, Texas, when Evelyn Harper's white Escalade turned off the county road and rolled to a stop at my gate for the 5th time in 11 days. It was the first week of April, the kind of soft East Texas morning when the redbuds are blooming and the air smells like pine sap and promise. I had just poured my second cup of coffee when I heard the familiar crunch of tires on Kalichi. She stepped out in pressed white jeans, navy blazer, clipboard clutched to her chest like a hymnal. Evelyn was 52, former real estate agent, current president of the Magnolia Trace Homeowners Association, and the only person I have ever met who could make a simple hello sound like a subpoena. Mr. Garrett, she began before her loafers even hit the ground. The Architectural Committee has documented another violation. Your grass currently exceeds the maximum allowable height of 4 inches by a significant margin. You have 72 hours to remedy the situation or daily fines will begin accruing at $100 per day. I let her finish. I had learned that when someone is determined to hang themselves with their own rope, the kindest thing you can do is hand them plenty of length. When the last syllable left her mouth, I took one slow sip of coffee, set the mug on the porch rail, and said the 4 words that changed everything. My land, my rules. The clipboard lowered 2 inches. Her chin lifted. For one heartbeat, the only sound was a pair of cardinals arguing in the loblolly pines behind the house. Then the veneer cracked clean in half. You do not get to decide that, Russell. This is a community. We have covenants. We have standards, and you will comply whether you like it or not. Her voice climbed with every phrase until the final word cracked like a starter pistol. A lesser man might have argued. I simply reached into the pocket of my Wranglers, pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, and started typing while she kept going. The Ring camera I had installed the week before recorded every second in 4K from 2 angles. She never once looked up at the little black lens blinking red above the gatepost. That was the exact moment the war began, though at the time I only thought I was dealing with a busybody who needed a hobby. My name is Russell Garrett. My wife Laura and I closed on these 5 acres in the spring of 2020, right after the world shut down, and I decided 31 years of turnarounds and man camps was enough. The subdivision to our east is called Magnolia Trace, 243 houses built between 2008 and 2018, each one looking like the next with only minor variations in brick color and mailbox shape. The HOA runs it like a small dictatorship with Evelyn Harper as its unelected queen. Our deed was clean as cathedral glass. No covenants, no architectural control, no mandatory dues, no Evelyn. The county clerk stamped it, the title company insured it, and the tax assessor mailed the bill to me and me alone. I figured that settled the matter. I figured wrong. The first violation notice appeared taped to my gate on Tuesday, April 8th, at 8:27 a.m. I was in the shop rebuilding the carburetor on my 1974 Ford when the Ring app chimed. Evelyn's Escalade sat idling while she smoothed a bright orange sheet of paper against the bars, took a selfie with it for proof, and drove off. I walked out in my greasy coveralls, peeled the notice off, and read it under the security light. Grass height violation. Mow within 72 hours or face $100 fine. Signed Evelyn Harper, President, Magnolia Trace POA. I took a picture with the timestamp showing, went inside, and started a folder on my desktop labeled Evidence, Magnolia Trace. Then I opened a spiral notebook and wrote the first entry in what would become a 47-page chronicle. Entry 1, August 4th, 8:27. Evelyn Harper affixed violation notice to gate. Photo saved. Deed confirming non-membership on desk, if needed. I am an engineer by training and a pessimist by experience. I document everything. 3 days later she came back in person. I was splitting oak on the side of the house when the Escalade turned in again. She parked, stepped out, and walked to the gate with the same clipboard and the same smile salespeople use right before they tell you the offer expired yesterday. Mr. Garrett, I'm Evelyn Harper, President of the Magnolia Trace Property Owners Association. I wanted to follow up on the notice personally and see if we could resolve this amicably. I set them all down, wiped my hands on a rag, and walked over. I had the deed folded in my back pocket like a poker player holding aces. Morning, Evelyn. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This property isn't part of Magnolia Trace. No covenants apply. I handed her the deed, the important paragraph highlighted in calm yellow. She barely glanced at it. I understand you believe that, but your property abuts our community. What you do affects our property values. I'm sure once you understand the bigger picture, you'll want to be a good neighbor. I took the deed back. The county clerk and the title company already explained the bigger picture to me when I paid cash for this place. If you have a legal question, you're welcome to take it up with them. Something flickered behind her eyes, too fast to name, then the smile tightened. We'll see about that, she said, and the Escalade disappeared in a cloud of dust. I added entry 4 to the notebook and installed 2 more cameras that afternoon. The visits settled into a rhythm. Monday morning, Wednesday afternoon, Saturday at dawn when she thought I might still be asleep. The violations grew imaginative. A trailer parked too close to the fence line. A burn pile that supposedly violated open flame ordinances. It was a charcoal grill. A political sign she claimed was too large. It was a handmade Veterans Day banner for my father-in-law. Each time I met her at the gate, let her deliver her sermon, typed her exact words into my phone, and watched the red light blink on the camera. On Friday, April 18th, she arrived unannounced at 7:12 a.m. and marched straight past the gate like she owned the place. I was on the porch drinking coffee in my robe when I saw her coming. She stopped 10 feet onto my side of the fence and started in at full volume. Russell Garrett, you have ignored every reasonable attempt at resolution. The board is prepared to escalate this to formal legal action and daily compounding fines. I set my coffee down, walked to meet her, and waited until she ran out of oxygen. Then I said it again, slower this time, like a man explaining gravity to someone standing on the edge of a cliff. My land, my rules. The clipboard came up like a riot shield. You think you're special because you have 5 acres of weeds, and we only have half-acre lots? This is a community, Russell. You live next to us. You live by our rules whether some piece of paper says so or not. I typed every word while she screamed. When she finally stormed back to her vehicle and laid rubber for half a mile, I went inside and added entry 12. Subject became verbally aggressive and threatened legal action when reminded of recorded property status. Full HD video saved. That night, I emailed Thomas Caldwell in Dallas. Thomas and I had pulled each other out of more than one tight spot on rigs in the Gulf. He had left the oil field for law school and now spent his days keeping developers and HOAs from swallowing widows and retirees whole. Thomas, I wrote, I've got a situation with the neighboring HOA president. She refuses to accept that my land isn't part of their subdivision and it's escalating. I've started a paper trail. Any chance you have time for a quick consult? He called me the next morning. Send me everything you have, he said without preamble. And Russ, start sending certified letters. People like this only understand receipts. So I did. The first certified letter was 3 pages of calm, lethal precision. It cited the recorded deed, the plat map, Texas Property Code Chapter 209, and Penal Code 30.05 on criminal trespass. It ended with a single sentence in bold. Further attempts to enforce fictitious covenants will be treated as harassment and responded to accordingly. I paid the extra $4 for the return receipt. Evelyn signed for it on April 24th at 9:42 a.m. I still have the scanned image of her signature, angry loops and sharp angles, like she was trying to stab the postal worker through the electronic pad. You would think that would be the end of it. It was only intermission. 10 days of silence followed. I mowed the part of the yard you can see from the road just to be neighborly, but I let the back 40 grow wild with black-eyed Susans and Indian paintbrush. Laura said the place looked like God's own postcard. I told her peace and quiet was worth more than perfect turf. Then on the night of May 4th, I woke at 2:18 a.m. to a string of motion alerts. I rolled out of bed, pulled on jeans, and opened the Ring app on my phone. 2 figures in dark hoodies were 20 yards inside my fence line, shining flashlights along the ground. One carried a measuring wheel. The other drove wooden stakes with orange survey ribbon into my soil, like they were claiming the Louisiana Purchase. I did not grab a gun. I did not yell. I dialed 911, put the phone on speaker, and let the dispatcher hear everything while I watched 4 camera feeds in night vision green. Deputies arrived in 5 minutes 42 seconds. The intruders heard the sirens, dropped their tools, and scrambled back over the fence, leaving behind a perfectly good Stanley measuring wheel and 8 survey stakes. Deputy Alvarez took my statement, collected the evidence, and asked if I wanted to press charges. Every single one you can think of, I told him. Incident Report GR 2025-01847. Criminal trespass, criminal mischief, attempted theft of property. They were planting false survey markers. I emailed the footage to Thomas before the coffee finished brewing. Trespassing incident number 2 came 4 nights later. Same hour, different crew. This time they brought bolt cutters and a can of survey paint. I was already awake, watching live. I called 911 again. Deputies caught them halfway through the fence. Both men claimed they had been hired anonymously through Craigslist for a late-night boundary verification job. They had no work order, no permission, and no idea whose land they were destroying. Both were arrested on the spot. Booked at 3:07 a.m. I slept like a baby. Thomas filed the petition for a protective order the next morning and copied the Gregg County DA on the criminal trespass file. While we waited for the hearing date, Evelyn tried one last public relations blitz. She posted a 3-paragraph update on the neighborhood Facebook page about certain adjacent landowners who refused to be team players and how the HOA was exploring every legal avenue to protect the investment of law-abiding residents. She never used my name, but the comments filled in the blank within minutes. I waited 24 hours, then posted my own update. 1 paragraph. No emotion. Deed excerpt attached, county plat attached, 2 sheriff case numbers attached, redacted footage of the midnight fence cutting attached. The comments flipped like a switch. Board member Daniel Pruitt wrote publicly that he had never been informed of trespassing incidents or unauthorized contractor payments. Vice President Marlene Carson admitted she had been deliberately kept in the dark. Evelyn deleted her post within the hour. Screenshots are forever. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Saturday, May 10th at 10 a.m. I showed up at 9:25 with a 3-ring binder the size of the Houston phone book and a digital recorder in my shirt pocket. The room was standing room only. 83 people by my count, more than had ever shown up for the Christmas party and 4th of July parade combined. Evelyn sat at the head table, looking like she had slept in her blazer for a week. She opened with a prepared statement about shared responsibility and protecting property values. Daniel Pruitt stood up before she reached page 2. Evelyn, with all due respect, the room deserves to know that 2 separate crews have been caught trespassing and damaging private property that this board has no jurisdiction over. Some of those actions were taken without knowledge or approval of the full board. You could have heard a cotton bowl drop. Marlene Carson stood next. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I move that the Magnolia Trace HOA issue a formal public apology to Russell Garrett, acknowledge in writing that his property is not subject to our covenants, and direct that all contact cease immediately pending legal review. Daniel seconded. The vote was called on the spot. 4 ayes, 1 stony silence. Evelyn was outvoted in front of 83 witnesses. After the meeting, Daniel walked me to the parking lot and handed me a thumb drive. Everything I could download before she changed the passwords, he said. Emails, invoices, meeting minutes she never shared. Some of the numbers don't add up. I think your lawyer will find it interesting. I shook his hand. You just saved your neighborhood, Daniel. He looked tired. I should have done it 6 months ago. The protective order hearing was set for May 23rd at 9 a.m. sharp. Thomas and I walked into Judge Alice Ramirez's courtroom 10 minutes early. Evelyn arrived at 8:57 with a young attorney who looked like he had been up all night. Judge Ramirez entered at exactly 9, reviewed the petition, and asked Thomas to present. Thomas laid the binder on the bench like he was offering evidence in a murder trial. 18 minutes later, Judge Ramirez looked over her glasses at Evelyn. Mrs. Harper, I have reviewed video evidence of criminal trespass committed after you were repeatedly informed you had no jurisdiction. I have reviewed sheriff reports, certified letters you ignored, and documentation of continued harassment after a public board vote to cease contact. This is not a close call. She signed the order. 12 months. No contact of any kind, direct or indirect. Violation is a Class A misdemeanor with jail time. Evelyn tried one last time. Your Honor, I was only trying to maintain standards for the neighborhood. Judge Ramirez did not look up from the paperwork. Standards do not include bolt cutters at 2 in the morning, Mrs. Harper. Court is adjourned. 6 weeks later, the Texas Attorney General closed their investigation. Findings: abuse of authority, financial mismanagement, unauthorized expenditures totaling $38,700, harassment of a non-member. Evelyn Harper was permanently removed from any HOA position and banned from holding office anywhere in Texas for 10 years. The association was fined $12,000 and ordered to refund every penny spent on lawyers, contractors, and midnight survey crews. Daniel is president now. Marlene runs a new transparency committee. The first thing they did was mail every homeowner a laminated card with the county clerk's phone number and instructions on how to verify whether your property is actually in the HOA. They call it the Garrett Rule. My grass is 8 inches tall in places now. The wildflowers are knee-high. Nobody has taped a violation notice to my gate since May. Sometimes on Saturday mornings I sit on the porch with Laura and watch the sun come up over the pines. The cameras are still there, but the red lights barely blink anymore. The place feels bigger than 5 acres. It feels like freedom. Evelyn sold her house and moved to Shreveport to live with her sister. Rumor is she tells people she was driven out by an unreasonable hermit with too much land and too little manners. That is her story. Mine is in a 3-ring binder, on 4 external hard drives, and in the public records of Gregg County, Texas, forever. My land, my rules. For words, 47 pages of proof, and 1 hell of a peaceful retirement. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. When does protecting the neighborhood become straight-up bullying? When someone wraps harassment in the language of covenants and community standards, where's the line? Have you ever watched a petty tyrant rise to power in your own subdivision, church, or workplace? Did you speak up, stay quiet, or handle it some other way? I am 54 years old, I have time, and I read every single comment. Lay it on me. Tell me your story, and tell me exactly where you draw the line.